Good afternoon. My name is James Mutlu, and I'm a project coordinator here at the Peace Islands Institute. Welcome to the Peace Islands Institute. Before we go any further, I would like to brief you about information about the Peace Islands Institute. Peace Islands Institute New York is a nonprofit, non-governmental civic organization which aspires to bring together different points of view and voices with a spirit of mutual respect and acceptance in order to develop original and alternative perspectives on social phenomena as they relate to our lives, present explanations as well as solutions, support successful practices, and as such, contribute to achieving world peace by creating realms of peaceful coexistence or peace islands. With the use of 4 factors: unity for peace building, education for ignorance, welfare for poverty and hunger, and progress for development, Peace Islands Institute aims to help with the UN Millennium Goals. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Mehmet Kılıç, Director of the Center for Global Affairs of the Peace Islands Institute, for further opening remarks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Peace Islands Institute. It's a great pleasure to have you all with us, and also we have wonderful speakers with us. I would like to thank Council General of Bulgaria, Radoslav Tochev, for being our speaker today. And also I'd like to thank Dr. Roger Hanver for being our host. And also I'd like to thank our dignitaries, people from the media, UN, and academicians in the audience. The Ambassador Luncheon Series is dedicated to promote peace, stability globally and locally. The lecture series given by ambassadors and council generals is to inform and educate the local and global community about issues that's going around the world. Today's Ambassadors Luncheon Series will establish the effect of the economic crisis in Bulgaria and European and international responses to it. The ongoing European economic crisis continues to shake the global economy. However, our uncertainty remains, and queries have arisen over the vigor and effectiveness of multilateral institutions like the European Union. The Eurozone's fiscally troubled economies like Greece, Portugal, Ireland, Italy, and Spain triggered the severe crisis of confidence. Although Bulgaria is outside the Eurozone, it has set a target date of 2015 to adopt the Euro. So today, Honorable Radoslav Tochev, the Council General of Bulgaria in New York, will share his vast knowledge, experience, and perspectives about European economic crisis with respect to the developments in Bulgaria and the EU. Again, thank you so much for coming. I hope this will be more enjoyable and as it is educational to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kılıç. The topic of discussion today is how the European economic crisis will change the future of Bulgaria and the EU. The event this afternoon features His Excellency Mr. Radoslav Tochev, Consul General of Bulgaria in New York, and our host, Dr. Roger Hanver. First, I would like to provide a little information about Dr. Hanver. Dr. Hanver is a New York-based financial industry executive with a distinguished prior career in government and academia. He served in diverse high-level defense sector advisory positions and commands. Acknowledged expertise in articulating the impact of defense technology, intelligence, and surprise, inclusive of cyber and space-based threats of the geopolitical dynamics of NBC capabilities, as well as the calculus of conflict to senior decision makers. His present area of focus in defense analysis is the impact on game-changing regional security paradigms and the potential for technology-driven asymmetrical financial conflict through electronic measures. Now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Hanver.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Actually, these days, the majority of my time is spent as an investment banker here in New York with an interest in the former CIS. It's my pleasure to deliver some opening remarks prior to the address by Consul General Tochev. Over the past year or more, a predominant degree of international attention has been developed and articulated globally with regard to the Eurozone crisis, particularly as it affects the lower tier economies, Greece, Italy, Ireland, Spain, and Portugal. And of course, the impact that the more developed industrial nations, Germany, France, Scandinavia, and the Benelux countries have as drivers of prosperity in the EU, which has essentially become a two-tiered system. However, in the course of this dialogue and difference of opinions, particularly between the French and the German leadership, there has been precious little discussion centered on the role of Eastern Europe, which is now a significant component of the Eurozone, and even less attention on the Black Sea zone and on southeastern Europe. This is of particular concern and interest because there are additional relationships that the nations of southeastern Europe have with major economic and military powers, and of course, I mean in the former context Turkey, and in the latter context Russia. Finally, there is the role of Belarusia, which is an emerging gas power, and of course the Ukraine, which is a revitalizing economy of significant agrarian, industrial, and oil and gas import for the regional as well as the world economy. Thus, the role of countries like Bulgaria in potentially being the anchor for future economic stability in southeastern Europe is a critical issue, as is the role of the emerging Turkish economic superpower status, one of the real, and I might add, few bright spots in the world's global economic picture is a vibrant Turkish economy. So the role of Turkey as well as Bulgaria is critical to consider for that region of the world. Our guest today, Consul General Tochev, has a distinguished career, and I would like to just mention a few landmarks of his career. He was most recently the foreign policy advisor to the Prime Minister of Bulgaria from 2009 to 2010. He was the representative of the European People's Party, the EPP, in the political bureau there from 2008 onwards. And he has been Secretary of Bulgaria's center-right political party, the GERB, from 2007 to 2009. Prior to that, he served with distinction as the Deputy Bureau Head in the French Treasury Directorate and as Deputy Head of the EU Parliament mission seconded to the French Ministry of Economy, Finance and Industry. Then since 2006, he was seconded to Bulgaria's Ministry of Finance. He holds a Master's of Public Administration from the prestigious École Nationale d'Administration of France and a Master's in International Economics from the Institute of European Studies in Paris. It is both a pleasure and a distinct privilege to introduce to you the Consul General of Bulgaria, the Excellency Radoslav Tochev.
Thank you, Dr. Hanwar, for this wonderful presentation. Very, very honored with what you just said. Thank you also to the Peace Iceland Institute for this invitation. It's a great opportunity for me to speak about my country and to speak about the European Union. Also, before I start, please accept my apologize for the postponing. This meeting was supposed to take place a week earlier. Fortunately, I had to travel abroad for a mission in Brazil, where I was sent by my government to attend a big international conference on open government partnership. I can say a few words about this initiative later if you are interested in. First, I would like to start with the question, actually, the main topic: how will the crisis change the European Union and Bulgaria? And I prefer to say this at the beginning of our discussion. I'm not sure I can answer that question. Will the crisis change the European Union and Bulgaria? Sure, it will. How? I don't know. I have some expectations, but it's at that point it's very, very difficult, even for me, basically optimistic pro-European diplomat, to see how the current trends are going to evolve. I try to speak first to give you. I don't know how many. May I? I would like to ask you a question. How many of you are Europeans? Yes. How many have already traveled or worked with Europe? Okay, almost everybody. And who has never visited Europe? Okay, there are some. Great. I'm asking this question only because I would like maybe to start with a short, let's say, basic explanation about what really the European Union is. Many Americans consider the European Union as a European version of the United States of America. It's not true. It's not really the case. Some people may consider the European Union as a purely formal union between nation states who almost don't have nothing in common. This is not true neither. This is something in between, something unique. At the opposite of the United States of America, the European Union is quite young. It has been created less than 50 years ago, after the Second World War. It was at the beginning a try, strongly pushed by the Americans after the war, through the famous Plan Marshall. It was try to avoid the errors and problems after the big war, the First World War, and the politicians after the Second World War, especially from Germany and France, tried to build a new project and to share at the beginning their interests. Their ideology was that if you put in common what may be considered as a potential source, potential reason to make war, if you put these things in common, there will not be wars anymore. So they tried with putting in common their coal industry and their energy. It was the first European institution or partnership created in the beginning of the 50s. Later, in 57, they created the single market with the Treaty of Rome. It's actually the possibility for the European countries to trade, to make commerce between them without barriers and frames to their trade. So within 20 years they were able to create a common market, very much similar to what you may see here in the United States. Keep in mind that the European Union, since the beginning, was a voluntary union. Countries, independent nations, decided to work together to put some national priorities, national powers, national prerogatives in common to reduce somehow their own power, their own sovereignty, and to work together. In parallel, they also created political institutions. They created a kind of government, so-called European Commission. They it also a different body because since the beginning it's not a real federation. This is a partnership between independent, as I said, nation states. So they created the European Council, which is a kind of also a government with the difference that for many years there was not real president of this government, and the initiative in terms of lawmaking was taken only by the European Commission. I'm saying this just to explain how it has started at the beginning, and how at the beginning of the 90s the Europeans decided to create also a common currency. They believed that because they had already great interconnection between them in terms of trade, in terms of partnership, they had already many policies in common, it would be great to have also a common currency. It's gonna, they believed, it will facilitate the trade, it will bring even more common identity, and it will make the whole union, but also the states, stronger. Of course, they were understanding that it's not going to be an easy process. There were voices against even this project. The opponents of this project were saying that you cannot create a common currency without having common budgetary policy, without having real common, let's say, Minister of Finance, Finance Secretary, or having a real common government. And we didn't have these institutions at that time, and even now we cannot say that we have these requirements. But the proponents of the European single currency, the euro, were saying that we can try to create the currency, and we can try to coordinate our fiscal and budgetary policies, and it will take time, but we can finally create the common currency area they wanted to, which they were thinking will be enough strong to avoid external shocks and external or internal problems. The euro was created or was implemented on January 1st, 2002, finally. Now, 10 years later, we have 17 members. We have, just remember, 27 member states in the European Union, but only 17 of them are members of the European of the Eurozone. So 10 of them are not members of the Eurozone yet. As I said, and this is my point where I wanted to come in, to explain how the crisis arrived, the current crisis. These 17 countries created in 2000, actually in 1999, but even before there was a European currency mechanism. But since 1999 officially, they created the single European currency with having in the treaty, in the European treaty, a kind of European constitution, with some requirements for having a coordinated budgetary policies. Some of these requirements were, for example, to have a budgetary discipline. No country was allowed to have more than 3% of budgetary deficit. There was also a requirement for the countries to avoid having growing deficits, public debts, I'm sorry, and it was stipulated that 60% of public debt, this is the ratio actually, public debt to your GDP, was the good criteria. So the countries, it was already implemented in the European treaty, the European Stability Pact, that countries have to maintain their deficits and public debts under these percentages. And it happened even before the introduction of the euro. What happened really after is that very few countries were really concerned by these rules. The countries, almost all countries, continued to spend money, to have public spendings, thinking that it's gonna, the others actually will behave better, and the price you pay when you spend more money than what you earn usually in economics brings inflation. If you spend more than what you have your payback in terms of price increasing, inflation. But this is what is happening usually when you live within your own economy, which is not connected with the others, when you have your own currency. With the European currency, you spend more money, basically you expect to have more inflation, but your inflation is somehow exported within the whole area to the other countries. And you're finally not paying the price of your budget spendings and your deficits. Also, usually, if you spend more money, if you have consecutive deficits, at some moment, at some point, you will be forced to pay more if you want to borrow money, because the banks will consider that you are a risky borrower, and they will force you to pay more money if you want to borrow more money. And these two criteria, inflation and the increased cost of money, is obliging usually the governments at some point to reduce their spending and to behave more responsibly. With the euro, it didn't happen. For many years, many countries continued to spend a lot of money, continued to have deficits. For politicians, it was an easy money. It's always easier when you, instead of cutting your spendings, instead of making savings and economies, it's easier to spend more money. You get re-elected. People like governments who take care of them by giving more pensions, more higher wages, who create public jobs or general jobs. So many countries, especially in southern Europe, continued to live over their real possibilities. And the accumulation of these deficits 10 years or 15 years later, 2008, 2009, brought us to the current European debt crisis. Many countries are having huge public debt. Some of them are no more able to sustain the payments of the interests of these debts. Their economies are no more efficient, and some of these countries are in situation of default. If they were citizens or private persons, their houses would be confiscated by the banks. So some of the European countries are very close, or were very close to that situation. A few words about Bulgaria. Bulgaria is not a member of the Eurozone. Bulgaria is a member of the European Union since 2007. We Bulgarians have experienced in 1997 a huge economic crisis, economic and financial crisis. We experienced for a few months what economists call hyperinflation. More than 1,000% of inflation per month. Almost a situation where the price you pay for your bread, for your baguette in the morning, is different than the price you have to pay in the afternoon. So this is the case we had in 1996-97. They were responsible politicians in Bulgaria during that time. They stopped this. They changed the way how the state and the government were considering economy. They implemented the so-called currency board. They connected by law our national currency, the lef in Bulgaria, to the German Deutschmark. Or let's say later it became the euro. And of course it was very painful. For a few months, we Bulgarians, we have lost our savings. People have lost everything. The adjustment, we paid the price. We paid the price for the adjustment between the supply and the demand in terms of current interest rates and inflation in Bulgaria. But after the implementation of the currency board, and for more than 10 years, Bulgaria and the consecutive Bulgarian governments, 3 or 4 Bulgarian governments, have maintained a very strong discipline, and they didn't allow at all to have deficits, public deficits. For more than 10 years, Bulgaria was able to make money every year, to have budget surpluses. Bulgaria has reduced its foreign debt, public debt, from 120% in 1996 to its GDP to less than 16% today. During that time, many other European countries have increased their public debt. Even some of them have doubled their public debts by accumulating public deficits. Bulgaria reduced drastically its public debt by having budget surpluses for more than 10 years. The European debt crisis arrived and hit Bulgaria in 2008. At the beginning, so it arrived from outside. Bulgaria, during the last 15 years, 13 years, used to have strong or comparatively strong growth. It was a catching economy. In 2008, 2009 especially, the crisis, debt crisis from outside, from the other European countries, keep in mind that our economy is very much connected with the European economy. 75% of the Bulgarian exports plus imports are with the European Union. The crisis hit also Bulgaria. We were better prepared by having quite strong budgetary discipline, by not having deficits and having had reduced our public debt, but still the crisis was very hardly felt in Bulgaria. Our economy decreased in 2009, 2010. Last year, the Bulgarian economy had some very moderate growth, about less than 2%, and the expectations for this year is about is having a growth for about 1.3.4%. Considering or seeing what's happening in some countries like Greece, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Bulgaria have struggled but have kept its public finances in a quite good and stable condition. We have started to implement some even more drastic measures in order to avoid financial problems. We implemented a law, a budgetary law, a few months ago, stipulating that no government can have more than 2% of budgetary deficit. We also said that no government can spend more than 40% in terms of national budget, 40% of the GDP. This is the relation between the public budget and the GDP of the country. We also implemented that if a government wants to raise taxes, it has, previously to that, to obtain 2/3 majority in the parliament. Few months later, the European Union, at the beginning of that year, have adopted a very similar stability pact and who stipulates that all these measures actually were still present in the European Treaty, even in the Maastricht Treaty before, but there were no measures to enforce these requirements. And the European countries decided that if a country tries to spend more than 3% of its GDP, to have more than 3% of public deficit, it will be automatic sanctions, and the country will have to pay penalties. So the current, though very lastly accepted European Stability Pact is here to bring more confidence and more stability by saying that the European politicians will have to be responsible. We'll have to respect the rules, otherwise there will be penalties. I remember more than 10 years ago in Europe, we had a debate about whether we have to implement sanctions and penalties for these bad governments who don't respect the rules. And many countries, almost all countries during that time, were against. They were saying, don't do that, because if you do that, you will, our countries, our nation states will be no more independent. The European Union will completely take out, completely steal our sovereign rights as nation states. And almost, except few European federalists and Euro optimists, almost all countries were against this idea. What happened with the crisis, with the European debt crisis now, is that the European Union implemented 10 years or even more later the same rule, which means, this is my personal observation, is that the crisis helped or pushed the European Union, the European countries, to become more responsible, of course, but more federalist. The crisis pushed the Union to go forward more integration and more common and federal institutions and policies. So my first answer, how will the European crisis change the European Union? My first guess is that if it's making the European Union more stronger. The United States of America became a real federation with strong central federal government after the Civil War only. I hope we are not going to have a civil war in Europe. There are no conditions for having that. We live together, we trade together, we have common cultural and cultural trends and understanding of each other. But the crisis, which is also something coming from outside, is a difficult moment. If something like this does not kill you, it makes you stronger. I can't see clearly right now whether this new rules, the European Fiscal Stability Pact will bring to our union more stability and more confidence, if it's gonna be enough to allow us to exit the crisis, to finish, to see this crisis finished, I think that we must probably do much more. But the thing is that until now the crisis helped the European Union to become stronger, more united, and I think for the first time since the beginning of the European Union, to make our governments more responsible and more aware about the consequences of their national decisions. That the national decisions, especially related to public spending, always have consequences for the others, for the other countries, and that we are basically very much connected, interconnected each other, and we cannot live anymore considering ourselves as like Spanish-speaking people say, pasajero clandestino, like illegal passengers in a common boat. I would love to have your questions, your remarks, agreements, disagreements about the European crisis, about my country. So, please, questions.
Yes, just a question about your country.
Of course.
What portion of your economy is tourism now? And how do you expect that, if at all, to change? It may not even be a major consideration when you join the Eurozone.
About tourism, you say.
Yeah.
So, I with the risk to be not to be very accurate, I think that about 8% of our economy, about between 8 and 10% of our economy is tourism. It's quite a lot. It's important for Bulgaria. We have both very well developed tourism on the Black Sea coast, and also a lot of let's say mountain resorts and winter tourism. So tourism is very much important for Bulgaria. Despite the crisis, it's still doing good. We attract very much tourists from a lot of tourists from Russia, let's say from the former Soviet bloc, but also a lot of tourists from Scandinavia, UK, and real, I think, potential for the Bulgarian tourism, especially for the ski resorts and the mountain tourism, is I think the Turkish market and the Turks. We live here. I'm sorry, the topic was not related with the relations between in the Balkans, between especially Bulgaria and Turkey. This very personally very much a very important issue to my mind. But I think that including tourism, but also many other fields and areas of business and partnership have huge potential, especially in the Balkans, and by doing trade and business between Bulgaria and Turkey.
Certainly, it is a relevant issue, so let me follow up on that with a question. What are the other major industrial and agrarian stock points in Bulgaria? Certainly the botanical industry, the flower industry. What about manufacturing and other potentials for Bulgarian development of its economy?
Thank you. As one of the former socialist countries, socialist economies, Bulgaria had developed very strongly during the communist period. Let's say the heavy industries. Almost everything gone in bankruptcy after the fall of the communism. The heavy industries in Bulgaria, mining, machinery, even heavy manufacturing were in collapse, and our economy moved from the heavy industries to very light industries during the 90s. Now Bulgaria is doing very well in agriculture. Bulgaria is exporting services from even a few days ago, you won't believe me, but we had a problem at the consulate with our website, and we just called our web site, the hosting company, just to explain that we have a problem. And we were starting speaking with the expert in English, of course. And when we said that we are the Consulate General of Bulgaria in New York, the expert from on the other side of the phone said, welcome in Bulgaria. You are in Bulgaria right here. So, of course, we are interconnected, and this is the global economy, but many even American, let's say, companies have outsourced their calling centers in not only in India and Morocco, but also in Bulgaria. So we export services. We have quite strong potential in let's say everything related with new technologies, internet, pharmaceutical companies, clinical research. We have, as already said, tourism, of course, and some light industries like food industries and. But what's very important for foreign investors, I want just to maybe in a few seconds to say, Bulgaria has the lowest taxes in Europe, or almost in the world. You have a flat tax for your personal income. This is 10%. Whatever you earn, you always pay only 10%. This is a flat tax on your personal income. Same, 10% corporate tax. So if you invest in Bulgaria, you produce something, you export, or you sell your goods or services in Bulgaria, you make some money, your company will pay only 10% corporate tax, and on your personal income, no matter what you earn, only 10% personal income, and this is quite unique, and I believe it had already done a lot to attract to promote Bulgaria, to attract foreign investors, but I think it's gonna continue to be very attractive for investors in the future.
Reverting to the EU topic, you mentioned the debt to GDP ratio, which is critical. Yet countries like China, which has a debt to GDP ratio in real terms of 270%, and Japan, remarkably, 170%. These are countries with highly competitive products, or in the case of Japan, tremendous currency reserves. By contrast, the afflicted countries in the EU, Greece, Spain, Portugal, to some extent Ireland, to some extent southern Italy, have amazingly large gold reserves, very large gold reserves that they're unwilling to use to bail themselves out.
domestically effective in Bulgaria will be ineffective in Europe because they will further increase the recessionary potential of the big countries and drive that recession due to trade relationships into the prosperous north of the EU. Therefore, the French have suggested, and the French banking community, that the bond structure of the European state bond markets be totally revamped. And I'd like your comment on that without taking a position as a diplomat. The idea is, of the French side, that all state bonds be eliminated in Europe, and there be only one bond for the euro, forcing world markets to invest inevitably in that single bond system, and then distributing the ups and downs and the spreads on those bonds equally throughout the EU, thus preserving the union, but coupling that with a relative devaluation of the euro so as to raise the competitiveness, not of German and French products, for instance, but of products from Greece, from Italy, from Spain, etc., on world markets, thereby reversing the declining employment picture. What do you think about that?
It's a complicated question. I see here two separate questions. About first about the idea to erase everything, to make a kind of tableau rase, as French people say, of the previous debts and problems. I don't think it's a good idea because it doesn't make you responsible. If you make an exception, if you start by saying what's wrong, what we did wrong until now, forget it, let's change, and we are going to behave now better, it's not good. It's a bad approach. So, for the first part of the question, this is my feeling. For the second part, about the idea to create a so-called European state bond, as a French product myself, I think this is a good idea. I believe that this is the future of probably of the European financial system. We have already a European Central Bank. We have our financial services in Europe who are very much integrated. Now our governments are aware very much, or let's say much more than they were before, about the interconnectedness of our economies and budget and national budget spending decisions. And because of this awareness, I think that the path is to create also the financial instruments and state bonds also to maintain this new European system in adequate stability and good condition. So I agree with this.
Although politically very difficult.
It is. It is difficult, and there is a debate between especially France and Germany on that. You know, this debate seen, if you look at this from our perspective in Bulgaria, it may look quite very far. Our concern with this growing European integration is more about if we could maintain our tax policy, independent tax policy, whether we can maintain our flat 10% flat tax on the personal incomes, or our 10% corporate tax, or as some Western European countries express as a strong desire to push us to raise our taxes, because for some of them they consider that it creates a kind of unfair competition. if you have personal tax of 65% in France, I don't know how or in Belgium, let's say, it's probably more than 50%, correct? So the Belgian taxpayers pay more than 50% of their incomes in tax. And if you go in Bulgaria, this is just almost a neighbor, still member of the European Union, you pay only 10% taxes. So this is our concern with this growing European integration, more than the question about state bonds and the Franco-German debate about this.
Finally, with respect to our great Turkish hosts here today, what are the opportunities for Bulgaria to blunt the impact of the European economic crisis by developing stronger and broader trade relationships and investment relationships, both with Turkey, which has a vibrant economy, and of course with the emerging Ukraine and Russia? Is Bulgaria looking decent and sound?
Bulgaria, as our foreign minister had said yesterday, we have common future with Turkey. I'm mentioning Turkey because he spoke yesterday about Turkey, but only a few months ago, maybe less than 1 month ago, for the first time in our history, the two governments, Bulgarian government and Turkish government, have had common ministerial meeting, a joint government meeting, following the path and the example of the common government meetings between France and Germany after the war. So it's quite unique in the Balkans and a very good example where our economies and countries would like to go. Bulgaria, and clearly I think that a great opportunity for Bulgaria is to look for more integration in our region, in the Balkans, for Bulgaria having a strong economy with more than 70 million of people, like Turkey, a strong economy, a developed economy, huge market. This is a real chance, and for Bulgaria, it's a good opportunity, a huge opportunity to deal more, to trade more with Turkey. Not only for Bulgaria, for the other countries too. Better interconnection, better integration in the Balkan region by creating more infrastructures, more roads, more highways, to meet each other more. This is the real potential and the real opportunity for our people there. So I truly believe in the local, the regional cooperation and integration within the Balkan region. Maybe one last question in order to speak on it. Of course.
Now France country has a presidency election, and it seems that the president will be not re-elected. And if France has a new leader, will the French economy be better? And I want to ask your idea if French economy affect the European countries.
Oh, this is maybe the hardest question today. I try to answer to your question in a different way by asking you again a question, by re-asking you a question. Do you think really that the upcoming American election the re-election of the current American president, of the election of a new one, will dramatically change the situation in America and in the world.
We don't know. I think so.
So probably, if you think so, you have probably your let's say your arguments for this, and probably the same arguments will be true if you look in Europe. Would be true for France too.
Because I left France a couple of years
Me too.
ago, so I don't know very well about France economy and European economy, but you know better than I.
Attendons de voir dimanche prochain, et je pense que peu de choses vont changer pour l'Europe et pour le monde. Quoi qu'il se passe, je pense que. Do you speak French? Or?
Je parle très bien.
Anything, I was trying just to say it in French, but let's say that I think that our European democracies and our politicians are clever, responsible, and good enough to maintain the trend of their European commitments, and no matter, regardless who the winner is going to be in France or in other European countries, because you have elections in Greece also in next month. I think that our European feeling, commitment is stronger than our internal politic ideologies or struggles.